Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Tears are coming down his eyes. I said, you may not know this, but you inspired this guy to be a business owner one day. I have my dad's work ethic. I want to make my dad proud, but I became an entrepreneur because of you. And it was such a beautiful moment that he and I had. He hugs me, I hug him, he's in tears, and I walk away. But today, we just need the right hero-making machine. We don't have it today.
Yeah, you're right. We don't have it. Hey, welcome back to the Dr. Phil podcast. I'm talking about some things today that are really of great interest to me. I'm going to introduce my guest in just a minute. I'm very excited to have him on today. You're going to find out why really fast. But I've got a question for you because I want you to lean into today's conversation. You've heard me say, I think everybody has a strategy for being in this world. And one of the things I've said to you people before that listened to me over the years is that I think everybody's in business for themselves. I don't care if you've got a bicycle shop you've started or you've got a big company or you're working for the United States Postal Service. I still think you are a company of one. I think you are a CEO of you, and everybody has an entrepreneurial opportunity in their life. I believe that. I think everybody is in business for themselves. That doesn't mean you're not a team player. Sometimes that's the strategy of getting ahead in this life. Now, I haven't had a job since high school when I worked for Hallmark Cards in Kansas City after school. I've been in business for myself all the way along, and I like that. I've enjoyed it. I like betting on myself, but all of you do too, is my point. Everybody is a company of one. How you do it may vary, but I think that's the attitude people need to take in life. And my guest today is Patrick Bet-David. Now, Patrick is a guy that apparently figured this out really early on. He epitomizes the true essence of being an entrepreneur, and he does it with resilience, vision, and sheer determination. He escaped the turmoil of the Iranian Revolution when he was 12 years old. He came here as a refugee, wound up getting into the military. He's a veteran and what I call a serial entrepreneur. Patrick's journey is nothing short of inspiring. He got into this early. At age 30, he founded PHP Agency. It was an insurance marketing organization. He had 66 agents. I say had because he grew the firm to somewhat bigger than that. In fact, he had 40,000 agents before exiting that organization with a multi-nine-figure exit. Now, Patrick is a #1 Wall Street Journal best-selling author of a book called Your Next 5 Moves. Now, I was not aware of this book. I read it over the weekend, and there's a lot of self-help books out there. There's a lot of business books out there. And then there are some that have verbs in their sentences. There are some that go from theory to practice and tell you something that if you read the book and truly embrace what's in there, people can look at you and say, what's happened to you? You're doing something different. There's something different about you. That's what I think is going to happen if you read Your Next 5 Moves. And we're going to talk about that some today. He's also the host of PBD Podcast and Valuetainment, #1 YouTube channel on the entrepreneurship, and the #1 business podcast on Spotify. A lot of #1s in there. So welcome. I am excited to talk to you today.
It's great to be on with you.
Now, You've got a lot to say, and I'm going to let you do a lot of talking here. What do you think was the thing that sparked you into doing things for yourself, being in business for yourself, taking the initiative of writing your own path instead of being a rank and file worker for a big organization?
That's a great question. And again, it's great to be on with you. For me, when I was in high school, I had a 1.8 GPA high school. So I wasn't a kid that was going to go college, I didn't have the grades for it. I was great in math. I was great in pre-calculus, math analysis. But everything else, my parents were going through divorces. There was a lot of inconsistency. I just wanted to get away from LA. I went into the military. I learned hard work in the military and camaraderie. I learned hard work from my dad, who worked at a 99-cent store in Inglewood right next to Great Western Forum for many years. And then when I got out of the military, I wanted to be Mr. Olympia. I said, I want to going to be the next Arnold. And I went to Mr. Olympia to meet the guys and kind of learn what the lifestyle was like. And then I realized it's not going to be for me. I'm 6'4". I need to be at 350, 400 pounds off season. Didn't want to do it. So knowing what I liked people. I'm always curious about stories of people. And I also love numbers. And I got into sales at Bally Total Fitness. I don't know if you remember Bally's back in the days, Nautilus, Bally's. So I started working at Bally's. And while I'm at Bally's, I started liking sales. I became Rookie of the Month. I became the, triple crown of what Bally's used to call it, quarterly in sales. And then from there, I was approached by somebody to get into financial services. I started working at Morgan Stanley Deanwood day before 9/11. And Dave Kirby, who was the branch manager, gave me an opportunity, and I went to Transamerica, and obviously the rest is history. But if I had to really break it down, it was the example of hard work. It was thinking about what you're good at and what you're interested in. I love numbers. I love people. Then the next one, Dr. Phil, that made it simpler for me was to accelerate the process, was to shadow somebody. If I'm able to shadow the right person, doing what they're doing, I have an advantage. If I work with you for 2, 3, 4 years, all the folks in front of you, behind the camera, they're working with you, they see certain habits. They see a certain level of preparation. They see what you do before. They see what you do after. They see the questions you ask. They see how prepared you come. They see the angles you take. That's going to stick. If a person's next to you learning those things, they're going to pick up the standard. So I had the opportunity of working with a lot of great people that showed me examples of sales, follow-up, discipline, and a lot of that stuff ended up helping me out later on in my career.
You said something that I think really jumped out at me in reading some of the things that you've written, because this isn't your only book. I've looked at a lot of your tapes and presentation on YouTube, and a word that you said that really exudes from you is curious. You're curious. When you interview somebody, you can tell you're really curious about what makes them tick, what drives them. It seems like you're wanting to learn something from everybody you talk to. You approach it kind of like a sponge, it seems like, because you're always asking the next question. Well, why this? Why that? What did you do this? That seems to me to be such a natural way to expand your base, but most people aren't that way. It seems to me you would be maybe the last person to do that. I mean, you spent time in a refugee camp in Germany. You had to flee. A lot of people that have been through your experience tend to be withdrawn. They tend to put up a shell around them. They tend to protect themselves because the world has not been a nurturant place for them. And it certainly hasn't always been nurturant from you. You and your family had to flee after Khomeini died. A lot of things went really ugly in your life, but instead of withdrawing and kind of going into an emotionally fetal position, you went the other way and started reaching out and gathering information, reaching out to people. How do you explain that?
By the way, great question. And for me, I didn't get into reading books till after the military. When I got out of the military, my sister recommended me How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I read the book by Dale Carnegie. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you got to be this great material here, right? This is phenomenal. And then my boss at Bally's, Robbie Solomon, recommended me How to Master the Art of Selling by Tommy Hopkins. And then afterwards, my third book was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then all of a sudden, I'm thinking to myself, these are great books. Then Norman Vincent Peale, Power of Positive Thinking, Psycho-Cybernetics, Power versus Force, and all these books, Law of Success, Think and Grow Rich. You start looking at all these books, then all of a sudden you say to yourself, you know, this is a whole different world. It's almost as if somebody put a lens. You know how you go to movies and you put those 3 glasses on and you see certain things that a person without 3D doesn't see? That's what the world of reading and books did to me. I'm a guy that got out not knowing what I wanted to do, and then I saw what was possible, and that was a beautiful thing. In regards to curiosity, you know, we know our story. You know your story. You probably, you know, when you go to dinner and you're meeting a couple for the first time, you and your wife, them and their wives, and you've probably have told the story. How did you meet your wife? I don't know how many times we've told that story, right?
Right.
I already know the story. And she's going to say, you say it better. No, you say it, babe. But the story that's the most exciting for us to hear is the other person's story, because we've never heard that before. Kind of like, oh, wow, that's how you guys met? Yes, we met that way. Wow, that's pretty interesting. So she approached you? She did. No way. Is it true? That's not true. He approached me, but then afterwards I asked him out to coffee and like, wow, it's a pretty cool story. But I think the part with me in regards to the curiosity side is the more I read and the more I learned about these guys that had a rough background. You know, sometimes when you sit down with comedians and you see the best comedians, the best of the best, Kevin Hart's, the Rogans, the Chappelles, you know, you go through their upbringing and then you'll realize a pattern of a very, very difficult life where they had to use humor to kind of lower the temperature of how bad things were in life. That's tough, right? When you see a pattern of kids that go into MMA, mixed martial arts, UFC, boxing, what pattern do we typically see? You'll see a pattern of bullying when they were coming up, where they had to find a way to stand up for themselves. When you see somebody that all of a sudden wants to be a certain specific doctor, what happened? They lost a relative, a mom or a father to that, where they want to dedicate their lives to figure out how to address what happened with their heart. To me, when I saw our life, what we were going through, and, you know, I saw how messy it was, and I got lucky early on because I was an atheist for 25 years of my life. And then eventually a pastor of mine got a hold of me, Pastor Dudley Rutherford from LA. We became very good friends. He married us. We changed our wedding day just for him. And then I noticed, I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to risk on there being a man upstairs that's with me versus being so skeptical and thinking about it from the mathematical standpoint, I'm going to bank on there being faith. And then once that happened, weight was lifted off your back, that you're not going through this process by yourself. Somebody's there with you. That's what helped me at the beginning stages of my 20s.
Struggling with foot, knee, or back pain? G-Defy shoes can change your life. G-Defy shoes are FTC approved to relieve pain caused by weight-bearing activities like walking, running, or prolonged standing. G-Defy absorbs harmful shock and returns energy to each step. This means better body alignment and improved biomechanics. Translation? Freedom to do what you love pain-free. G-Defy shoes have your back. Literally. They're a game changer for seniors and veterans who deserve comfort and support. Here's the deal. You can try G-Defy risk-free with a 60-day trial. And right now, listeners of this podcast get an exclusive offer. 50% off orders of $120 or more. Just text Dr. Phil to 91888. That's right. Half off shoes designed to improve your quality of life. So take control of your life. Text Dr. Phil to 91888 or visit gdefy.com today. It's time to feel good again because you deserve it. You talk about all the books that you read early on, and a lot of people that do that come out with a vocabulary of one bumper sticker after another. You know, they get one bit of information and they spew that out, and it's like one bumper sticker after another. A lot of people that go through rehab, you know, they don't really get it, but they learn rehab speak, and they'll spew that at you, but they don't really think about what's behind it. And you can tell those that really get it and those who just have the speak. It seemed like to me, as I've read the things that you've written, I've heard the things that you say, you kind of use that as priming the pump and went much deeper. In fact, one of the key things you talk about is that you really need to master knowing yourself, understanding your desires and core values. And that sounds maybe, I don't know, pretty easy or pretty simple, but that's a lifelong journey. And that target is a moving target. It's so important. When I was reading what you had to say about that in your next 5 moves, I thought about how tragic it is if you spend your life becoming the best accountant that ever was, the best doctor that ever was, the best carpenter that ever was, only to find out that that wasn't what you wanted to do. You became the best doctor or carpenter or dentist or whatever, and you get to the end of your life and say, yeah, I really mastered that, but that wasn't me. That wasn't my passion. That isn't what I wanted to do. And that's really tragic if somebody spends their life mastering something they don't want to do because they never really learned who they were or what they really wanted to do. And you seem to have figured that out. You figured out who you are and what you really want to do.
Yeah, it's such a tough question. And I'll share with you why. Because, I was with Tony Robbins last week at his place. We're sitting there having a conversation together. And I remember going to my first Tony Robbins event at 21 years old. Or you read the book, Live with Passion, right? And you'll hear people talking about pursue your passion, pursue your passion, pursue your passion. And although that's a great counsel and feedback, at least in my opinion, sometimes you have to be able to, balance, not necessarily balance, but juggle two ideas at the same time simultaneously. And here's what I mean by it. If I were to say my passion early in my 20s and go pursue it, okay, I love collectible cards. What if I pursued that, right? What if I pursued, certain things that were, specific to movies or documentaries or shows or, we want to write scripts. And if I wanted to do that in my early 20s, but then I also like people and I like numbers. So I said, what if you can, in the interim, I'm going to pursue business and I'm going to do numbers and I'm going to do finance. I'm going to sell stocks, bonds, mutual funds, insurance. I'm going to build a book of business. I'm going to build an agency. While I know that I have interest in politics per se, or I have interest in philosophy, or I have interest in content creation. And then eventually there will come a time, the opportunity will arrive, because sometimes it's also about sequencing where we're doing things out of order. Sometimes we hurry things up and we break things if we're trying to do it out of whack. But this doesn't mean it applies to everybody. Everybody has a different story and a different journey on how they go about it. But for me, the moment I sat there one day, I'm at Matador Beach in right by Malibu, it's right by Zuma, and I'm out there, I'm getting a hold of these questions. I start going through these questions one by one on Sunday, and I'm answering these questions, and I'm like, who do you get along with? Who do you not get along with? Is there a pattern of the people you don't get along with? Why do you not get along with those types of people? I'm like, holy shit, you know what? Why don't I get along with those types of people? Why do I get along with these types of people? Is it because these guys are easier? You know what? If I do get along with them, they're not really doing anything crazy with their lives. They're living simple lives and they're blaming everything either on the government or the military. It's all the military's fault. It's all my boss's fault.
Yeah.
So maybe I get along with them because they're more comfortable and it's warm and it's fuzzy. It doesn't mean it's good for me to get along with this group. And then whenever I'm around this other group, there's a certain level of tension or a little bit of pressure. And it's peer pressure, but it's the positive kind of peer pressure that you don't want to be around. But when you're around it, you're like, what if I do that? I can do this. What if I can improve? What if I can improve? And these are the questions I asked at an age where I'm just a regular guy trying to figure things out for myself. I said, man, we gotta kind of process these decisions a little bit better. And then the more as you're trying to go about finding yourself, your pursuits, and certain people are put into your life, that this guy introduces this person to you, and then that person introduces this to you. If you were to look at your life, most of us, if we were to look at our lives and said, you're going to be here 20 years ago, somebody said, you're going to be exactly where you are today. I don't know if we'd be able to say, yeah, that's exactly what, there's certain things that happens, but half the battle, Dr. Phil, is you sitting there kind of figuring out what drives you, what moves you, without making the alibis and the excuses. and then trying to do your best to pursue that without screwing up the current opportunities that you have at stake, that you have in front of you. Because sometimes kind of like, well, real estate didn't work out. I don't think real estate is for me. I'm going to go do content. I'm going to be a YouTuber. Oh, this didn't work out. I'm going to go do insurance. That didn't work out. I'm going to go do banking. That didn't work out. And it's not that didn't work out. Maybe it's the fact that our habits today are also not the best habits that help us win in any place. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But these are tough questions to ask that most of us don't want to ask.
No, of course not. I talk to a lot of people who say, hey, I want to write the next great novel, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. Yeah, listen, if that's your passion, I get it. But in the meantime, you do have rent to pay, and you do have 2 kids that get hungry on a fairly regular basis. And sometimes you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. So I tell people, look, you have to pursue your passion, but you've got to be realistic about it. It's great if you can afford to quit your job and go write the next great novel, and the chance of you doing that is probably not great for most people. So I could decide I want to be the next big NBA star right now, but I've got like a 3-inch vertical, so that's probably not going to happen. You don't want to kill people's dreams, but you've got to have people be realistic. They got to look at the reality of where they are. They got to meet their requirements. I mean, I feel really blessed in that everything I've ever done, I truly feel like has prepared me for what I'm now doing. That's not true of everybody. I mean, if I'd spent 5 years selling shrimp out of a van down by the river, that wouldn't have prepared me a whole lot for what I'm doing today. But since I've been able to choose the things I've done, those experiences have contributed to what I'm doing. You're great at math. You say, you were doing calculus and this, that, and the other. I can't add 2 and 2 and get 5 every time. So I've stayed away from that kind of thing, whereas the qualitative sciences have been really easy for me. So I've chosen a path where I talk for a living, where I reason for a living, where I, talk about critical thinking and things of that nature. People can choose a path where, the wind's at their back, the sun's at their back, because it matches their skill sets. But you talk about in your next 5 moves, you say you get into the habit of thinking 5 moves ahead in everything you do in business. Just working to try and do that will lift your game and lead to greater success. Translate that to the average American. I deal a lot with the heartland, not the 2 coasts, but all these people in the middle that are living their lives, raising their families. They live in the flyover states. They're people that are trying to find a way to create extra opportunities, extra security. They don't have a lot of latitude. They don't have a lot of disposable income. They don't have a lot of disposable time. I'm the one that says, you're still in business for yourself. How do you translate this into language and action for kind of the everyday person on the street? How do you translate that into action for them? What do you tell those people to do to start making changes? $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today.
That's a great question. And by the way, you were saying how you were lucky enough from the beginning where it sounds like you wanted to sell shrimp. It sounds like you were interested, and maybe you were reflecting back right now saying, I wish I did sell shrimp down by the river, but meaning you kind of got into exactly what you're doing today, and it kind of built you up to being where you are today, even working at Hallmark. They're a big customer service place, and you being one of the best guys in the world at interviewing and getting information out of people, right? I mean, you're responsible for a rap song. You're responsible for quite a few different things, Dr. Phil. What's the famous line she said with you that became the baby? I don't know what her name is. Anyways, you've done a lot of different things that we've seen with the work. But here's what I would say to the average day-to-day person. What I would say to the average day-to-day person is this. One day I'm at church and a pastor gets up and he says, one of these pastors gets up and he says, I married the first girl I kissed, okay? I chose not to drink. I chose to save myself before I have sex. And he's just going through this message, and I'm sitting there, and he says, why can't you do it? Why can't more of us do that? And he finishes the sermon on this message. And I'm sitting there asking myself and looking around the congregation saying, who liked today's message? Who listened to this message like, oh my God, I'm inspired. Because of course, we all save ourselves before we get married. Of course, we marry the first person we kiss. Of course, we make all the right choices in our lives. I said probably 90% of the congregation right now feels like shit.
Yeah.
Because it relate to that message. And the reality of it is, when you look at people, some people get married to their high school sweetheart, and it becomes the story like the movie Notebook, right? Noah, oh my God. And he sits there and he writes the journal to you, and she remembers him, and then they die in bed together. Oh, will I ever have this kind of a love life with my husband? No, I met her at a nightclub. I met him at a nightclub, right? So sometimes comparing ourselves to other people, I've seen people that get married by the book, met at church, waited, 2 years later, divorce, nasty divorce. I've met people that get married in the weirdest places and they're married for 30 years. It's a very weird thing. However, if anybody, I love the way you put it at the beginning where you said everybody has to look at themselves as you're the CEO of your business. You are a business, right? How can I make this product a better product no matter where I go? Last month, January, December, we start doing annual reviews, right? We got a bunch of employees here, so we're going through annual reviews, and we're scoring everybody. Managers scored, then they bring them in, and we have 5 categories that we go through with everybody. And some of the folks that are watching this right now, if you got a job, you went through it, and maybe your boss didn't give you what you expected to get to hit the 100% the bonus. You're not happy about the message I'm giving you, but stay with me here. So we have outstanding. Then you have exceeds expectation, meets expectation, does not meet needs improvement, does not meet expectation. Whoever's does not meet expectation, we move on with them. Whoever's in the outstanding category, massive raise, bonus, and a multiplier of a bonus. It's not just 100%, it's 125, 150% the bonus, so they're very happy about it. And then we structure it. So now how do we score folks? On 5 areas plus the 3 on bonus that I'll give you here in a minute. So number 1, we score you 0 to 10 on your attitude. Very simple. How's this person's attitude? Give them an 8. That's good. Okay, cool. How about effort? They're always here at 9:01 and they leave at 4:59. Let's give them a 4.5, 5. They just do enough to come in, but nothing above and beyond. Cool. How about teamwork? This person's a team player. Really, anytime anyone's ever asked help, they're a good team player. 8.5. Cool. How about when it comes on to creativity, innovation? Do they find ways to solve problems? Yeah, not really. Probably 6.5. Okay, how about the last one, results? No, they get their job done. They're an 8. Great. Then we score it out of 50, and then that's the score that you got. Then on the last one that we do, the 3 is L, S, and you have the last one being C. So L, leadership skills. Do they have leadership skills? Do other departments watch this person as an example of a leader? Yeah, I kind of like the way this person leads. Do they develop other people that get promoted and work in different departments? They do. Number 2 is specialized skill. What new skill set did you pick up this year, Johnny? This year I learned how to code in my spare time. How much time you put into that? 150 hours. Really? Yeah. Good for you. What did you learn? I learned how to edit. I learned how to sell. I took a negotiation class. I took a customer experience class with this guy named Will Guidero, who ran the #1 restaurant in the world called 11 Madison in New York, and he became a 3 Michelin star. I want to learn how to give better customer service to our guests when they come into the office. Very cool. But I'm asking, what specialized skill sets did you learn? Why is that important? Because you're increasing your market cap. You're increasing your market value. The market will pay you more for whatever more level of value you bring into the market, right? And then the last one is culture. Does this person fit the culture? Does this person love what they're working at, right? This is a form of a SWOT analysis for all of us to do on a yearly basis, okay? And we do this quarterly. For me, when I sit down and I do business plan, things change for me with business plan when it was actually a life plan. And I remember one time I watched this movie called Meet Joe Black. I don't know if, Dr. Phil, you've seen Meet Joe Black. It's a movie with Brad Pitt where Anthony Hopkins comes up and it's death, and you know how it starts, and he's with his daughter and they're flying the helicopter and all this stuff. And I look at my wife, I said, oh my God, babe, you know what? We got 4 kids, 2 older boys, 2 younger girls. Man, I want one day for my 65th birthday to look like this, and I want us to be able to do this. Yeah, Meet Joe Black. And it gets you thinking too, this thing's going to go by very quick. And I said, I want this life. And then I remember when I'm in insurance and I'm building a business, I said, I want to build a holding company one day where my kids are not forced to work just in one business. If they want to choose to do content, if they want to choose engineering, sales, retail, real estate, they could do it. So the more and more we kind of measure ourselves for the kind of life that we want to build, and we're excited about it. I'm at a soccer tournament yesterday. One of the boys that's there with his father, and it's an all-day soccer tournament. I've seen this kid a few times in the last year and a half, and he's always down, grouchy, and quiet. Doesn't say anything. Good-looking guy. He looks like he could be in Hollywood. So I said, how you doing? Takes his earpiece off as if like, why are you talking to me? And the father's standing between he and I. I said, how you doing? I'm okay. How's school? Whatever. What grade are you in? High school, 10th grade. What's your favorite subject? Probably I like science. What do you think about math? Hate it. Really? What do you want to do in high school? Do you want to play sports? Not really. Are you into chess? Not really. Do you want to be a valedictorian, compete? Not really. Who do you look up to? Nobody. Do you have any athletes? Anybody you look up to? No. Who's your hero? No one. Do you have any dreams? Not really. And he couldn't wait. He keeps going like this with the earpiece, like, sir, can you still stop talking to me because you're bothering me? And he puts a thing in his ear and he walks away, and I pull the father aside. I said, I got a question for you. He says, yes. I said, when's the last time you took your son out to dinner or lunch by yourself for a couple hours and you poured into him? He looks like he's running on E. When's the last time you sat down with your son and you talked to him about whether he's drifting or not? He looks like he's drifting right now. He's going to be a 30-year-old man drifting. When's the last time you poured into him? When's the last time you had a conversation with him? And he says, I haven't for years, because he went through a challenge with his mother. I said, man, I think that guy needs 2 hours away from everybody with daddy, and you're his daddy. And I said, I did that a year and a half ago with my oldest son, because my son one of them was drifting, and it was clear I was drifting as a young kid till I was 18 years old when I joined the Army. But sometimes if at 46, at 63, at 13, at 18, if we don't have a dream, it could be as simple becoming a VP of Ops, becoming a manager, becoming a general manager, whatever it could be. If there is no dream to get your juices flowing, why would I put a plan together and work on, getting better for myself? Why would I do that? So I think at the most basic level, Dr. Phil, is I saw the video of your house, right? And where you guys are giving a tour of your house. We watched this a few months ago. One of my guys was showing me, I think there was some record with your house. And you're like, here's where they built this. Here's where they built that. Here's where they built this. I was a kid growing up, like the life of rich and famous. You're looking at people's homes. It was so exciting, but it's a dream. One doesn't wake up one day living in a house like that accidentally. At some point, somebody was dreaming. So to me, I think the dream machine, for anybody that's listening, if you get the dream machine going again and you get excited about it, then that'll prompt you to write a plan to get it. Then that plan you put together, hopefully you have some direction. Then you want to improve this product. So to me, at the most basic level, it starts with having dreams. If you don't have them, why am I going to get up and improve myself?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And that's well put. We've got a generation right now that I'm really concerned about, because they've decided, and people have told them, this is the first generation that's not going to do as well as their parents. they're not going to be able to have a mortgage. They're not going to be able to afford a house. They're not going to be able to have a standard of living as good as their parents, when every generation before has been projected to do better than their parents and just step up. And we've given a message now to this generation that is pretty doomsday. Like, there's nothing you can do. We've got such a deficit in this country. There's so much that the government is going to have to take away. There's so much that's happening with cost, et cetera, et cetera. You guys don't have a chance. And so I'm talking to a generation now that's not dreaming in that way. They don't have a goal. They don't have a vision. They don't have a passion. My friends do. Steve Harvey's a good friend of mine, and I was talking to him the other day. He still has a vision board. He still has things that he puts up there and says, I want to achieve this. Interestingly enough, for a lot of people, it's not something monetary. You know, there are different kinds of currency. There's monetary currency, emotional currency, social currency, spiritual currency, social currency. There's all different kinds of currency. It's not just all getting rich or famous. It has to do with achieving things that you value, that mean something to you. And I think everybody has to have that reason to get up in the morning. I always tell people, don't compare yourself to anybody but you. You've got to compare yourself to you yesterday, or you a week ago, or you a month ago. Comparing yourself to somebody else is like setting a goal to have a white Christmas. You don't control the weather. You don't control anybody else, and you have no idea what they're really like. They may be so miserable, they just put on a good social mask. You have to decide what's important to you, and you really talk about that. You said in every industry, 80% of the players will be actors and 20% will be doers, and the key to positioning yourself firmly in the doers camp is to continually be investing in learning and growth. And that's why the 3 things you added to your 5 criteria, and asking these people, what did you do? What skill set did you pick up? I call it consequential knowledge. When they start coming around and thinning the herd at your company, you want to be somebody that has knowledge that's consequential to the success of that organization. And it can be that you're the one that knows how to fix the copier. You're the one that knows how to reboot the computers. It doesn't need to be that you're a brain surgeon. You just need to have something that's consequential to the outcome. And it can be any number of things. But I was so glad to hear you say you asked those things of your people. What did you learn that you didn't know last time we sat down and talked? Everybody can improve their trajectory by picking up new skills, new abilities.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that, right? The idea of recreating ourselves, is a very painful thing to process, because recreating yourself is, in a way, saying you're good for this level, but you're not good for the next level. What do you mean by that? You're not ready for the next level. Well, I want to find a way to get to the next level. So a lot of times we stay at a warm and fuzzy place because we're content and we know what we're doing here. But the idea of recreating to increase your market value, that is not an easy thing to do. You were saying something earlier about this generation not feeling like, they can have their dreams become a reality like the previous one, et cetera, et cetera. Half the battle with that is hero-making machine. Who are we turning into heroes right now? If I was to ask you right now, who is a hero today? The last 4 years, who did the media turn into hero? Who was the villain? Who is the villain? Is the villain the person that goes and does something with their lives? Is the villain somebody that's in the arena? Who is the hero? I'm really I don't think we have a definite. We used to do Father of the Year award. Yeah. We used to do Mother of the Year award. We used to do Father of the Month, Mother of the Month. When's the last time we turned them into heroes? What stories do we know? If you turn on the news, all you hear about is what somebody did to hurt somebody else and killed this person and did that person. We're just learning about what it is to be a villain. The hero-making machine, sports do a good job with that if you think about it, right? Look at this. He made the last shot, so we want to be an athlete. Why? Because they're painting this person to be a hero. Last night, Academy Awards, Oscars, Grammys. Oh my God, I want to get an award because somebody is being turned into a hero. But anytime, some of these companies like Ernst & Young, they'll do the E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year or this thing Entrepreneur of the Year. And sometimes the benefit, I know a lot of people take a lot of shots at sales. Hey, that guy does sales. That guy does this. That guy does that. I can tell you, you said Steve Harvey vision board. I guarantee you at some point, Steve Harvey sold something. And one of his bosses told him, put a vision board together to have some dreams. If you look at any of these guys that at some point they got into talent, they were either waiters, waitresses, something to do with learning how to work with somebody else where somebody sat there and said, hey, can you put a vision board together? Every December 31st, every year on December 31st, myself, we have a 13-year-old son, an 11-year-old son, an 8-year-old daughter, and a 3-year-old daughter. New Year's Eve, we'll sit there from 8 o'clock at night to 12:30, and everybody will build their own vision board. We'll go to Michael's, we'll grab the boards, we'll grab the scissors, glue, and then we'll go to Barnes & Noble. We'll buy 50, 100 magazines and books and come back home and say, okay, guys, let's go through it. We need words, we need pictures, we need things that'll inspire you, motivate you, push you, challenge you, maybe even something that'll remind you of a moment that you had that you weren't too excited about. You put on like, that reminds me of that moment. I don't want that to happen to me again. Let's put the vision board together. It's the most incredible exercise with everybody sitting there dreaming. But yeah, the basic stuff, Dr. Phil, at the end of the day is the dream inside. However, we need more dream-making machine. We need more hero-making machine. We need people telling us who the heroes are. I think that is an area we've had some problem with for such a long time. And I'll tell you where it starts. My opinion is you go to high school, you go to junior high school. Politically, we know where most of the money goes to politically. We know where the teachers lean. We know how the teachers feel about capitalists. We know how the teachers feel about people that build businesses. Teachers are not sitting there celebrating business owners. Teachers are not, many of them are sitting there saying, well, look at this person and look at that person and you can do this. A lot of times teachers are sitting there, depending on public schools, they're saying sometimes things that are not really that exciting about somebody that did very well in business. All that person cares about is money. The fat, greedy guy over here, they just abuse anybody that became rich. They took advantage of somebody else. So the kid doesn't want to be that. How do I know that? My mother's side, they were all communists. And growing up, we had an uncle in our family. His name was Luther Al-Khassei. He passed away a few years ago. And Luther Al-Khassei was a guy that owned transportation. He owned trucks. And he made a lot of money. And every time I would hear stories from my mother's side about this man, it wasn't complimentary of him. And I'm like, man, I grew up thinking this is a bad man. This is a horrible man, how he made his money. Later on when I aged and I could think for myself, I would go to his house once a year, and he lived in Upland, California. He lived right next to Snoop Dogg. It was a 7,200 square foot house, swimming pool, indoor jacuzzi, office, library, TV room. He would go in the kitchen with Big Island. He would cut up salami and mortadella, and he would make sandwich for all the kids, and it would sit there in those, back in the days, 1,000-pound TVs, and we would watch Michael Jordan play, dun, 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 dun. I would watch this guy's debating politics and telling his kids, I don't believe in Jesus now. Tell me why you still think. I'm just like, what is this guy doing? He's just steering the pot always with debates, basketball court outside. I'm like, wow. He had 2 Jaguars, 2 Cadillacs. He had a bird. I would watch this guy. I'm like, this is a dream. And so at 33 years old, I went to my mom. I'm like, Mom, why did so many people say bad things about this man named Luther? Because I wanted to be him. That guy became my hero. I wanted to be Luther Al-Khassei. Why did you guys see so many bad things about him? She says, you know what? Back in the days when I said it, the reason was because once he started making money, we no longer saw him anymore. I said, Mom, why do you think you didn't see him? Well, I just, we thought because he made money, he thought he was better than us. I said, Mom, I'm starting to make money, but it's because I'm working so hard that I can't make it to all the birthday parties anymore. I can't be everywhere at everything anymore because I'm building my business. She says, no, son, trust me, I know now. But at that time, we thought he was thinking he's above us, and I'm glad you're pursuing your career right now as a business owner. But the point is that man, that Luther Al-Khassei, was this kid's hero at 14 years old. We were at Rafi's place in Glendale. I'll never forget this. We're at Rafi's, and while we're at this restaurant, all of a sudden, his daughter, Jackie, comes up to me. And Jackie's sister, Vladimir, was my coach. When I was a troubled teenager playing basketball, he would coach me at this basketball association at Echo Park, LA. She says, hey, Patrick, how are you in Assyrian? How you doing? I'm doing great. How's everything? We're sitting over here. Who are you with? My dad is here. Luther's here? Luther's here. No way. Yes. Can I talk to him? Come on down. Okay. I said, can I say something to you? He says, what's that? I said, you won't know this. I'm not your son. I'm not your grandson. We're not related. I said, but I want you to know this here. And he was in his early 90s at the time. He passed away a year later after that meeting that we had at Rafi's. I said, you may not know this. I watched every single move you made when I would come to your house once a year. I can tell you and recite everything. And I started to. Dr. Phil, I'm telling him vivid stories of how he would treat his family, his kids, the pictures he had in his billiard room, everything. Tears are coming down his eyes. I said, you may not know this, but you inspired this guy to be a business owner one day. I have my dad's work ethic. I want to make my dad proud, but I became an entrepreneur because of you. And it was such a beautiful moment that he and I had. He hugs me, I hug him, he's in tears, and I walk away. But today, we just need the right hero-making machine. We don't have it today.
Yeah, you're right. We don't have it.
No, we don't have it today. We need to paint the right picture for those guys, for young kids to be inspired to be that.
Yeah. Not only are we not giving them that kind of role model, we're actually scaring them to the point that they're intimidated and don't want to engage. We're saying, there's nothing you can do. You're not going to get there. So we're intimidating them out of it. And I don't believe that. I think it's what you make it. People have been upset over who got elected president, whether you're for Trump or against Trump. I told people the night of the election, you may have a preference as to who's president, but I promise you, if you think back, your life hasn't changed a whole lot, whether who you wanted to be president was president or not. It's all up to you. It's like, do you want taxes to go up or down? They've never had 100% tax. So maybe you have to work a little harder. Maybe it motivates you more. I don't know. We look for a reason, an excuse to explain away why we're not doing as well as we want to do. I've always said life is managed and you're the manager and you can't fire you. So you might as well learn to get along with you better and jack it up better. And, you say invest in yourself and think 5 moves ahead. If we can get people to actually sit down and do some planning. And that doesn't mean that you're locked into something. What's the old saying? Life's what happens while you're making plans. I get it. You have to change. You have to evolve. You have to be flexible. But if you're actually thoughtful about making a plan and identifying the steps necessary to get to that plan, we don't have to leap tall buildings in a single bound. I try to get people to understand that small changes aggregate into big results across time. And here we are. We're in February, right? So we're barely starting off this year. The rest of this year is going to go by whether people are making changes in their lives or whether they aren't. You can make a little change this week, a little change next week, another change next month. By the end of the year, that's going to all add up to huge progress in your life if you're just consistent. And you're saying think 5 steps ahead. And then when you've executed 2 of those, you need to add 2 more on the end of it, right? You need to constantly be staying ahead every step of the way. I think that's what your book is calling on people to do, to really think ahead and make some plans.
And by the way, if you start thinking about it that way, it's like playing a game. It's actually exciting. Like this idea of life, my dad is famous for one line. He would always say, it's getting late. You're getting old. You're getting old. Time's running out. It's getting late. It's getting late. And I would say, okay, that mindset, we had this conversation this Saturday, that mindset produces energy, right? And urgency. It's getting late. You better do something. You're going to age. You're going to be 50 years old tomorrow. You're going to be 60 years old tomorrow. You're going to look at me. I'm 82 years old. He's telling me this, right? And although that is true, yes, urgency is it's the reason why sports has a shot clock. You better get it or it's a 5-yard penalty. You better get it or else the other team gets the ball in the NBA. You better hurry up and throw the ball in or else there's the urgency that it creates.
Yeah.
But then the other part is also, I had a guy that came to me. We did a business planning with him for 2 hours. He plays for the Dodgers. Now he's with the Reds. And we sat there, had a 2-hour plan. He's 30 years old, done very well for himself. He's got a World Series championship ring. And he connects me, sends me a message on Connect. I say, come on then. He comes on, we sit down, we talk. And I said, so where are you at with what you want to do? You've hit the ball out of the park many times. You've had moments in the playoffs. You've experienced what it's like to finish the game on a home run. But where are you at now? It's your career. So we write things out. I said, in people that play sports, typically, afterwards, you have one of 5 moves. One, you go choose to become a skipper, hitting coach, third base coach. Or you're a skip, you want to be eventually coach for a team. Great. Number 2, commentator. Go to ESPN, go to Fox, go to CBS, go to ABC. Give commentary, okay? 3, go be a YouTuber, maybe like Trevor Bauer, maybe like Pat McAfee. Kind of create your own stuff. Number 4, start an academy. One of the best guys in soccer in Orlando, his name is Eddie Johnson. Phenomenal. We took every year we go to Aspen for Christmas or we go to Whitefish, Montana. We went to Orlando this Christmas. Everybody's like, why are you going to Orlando? I said, I'm going to Orlando because my 11-year-old son wants to play soccer, and the best coach in the state of Florida is a guy named Eddie Johnson. He scored 78 goals in MLS. He played in Premier League. So we're in Orlando just to watch my son train with Eddie Johnson. So we go there. So I said, you can create a academy teaching kids how to hit baseball. And you can charge parents $750 a month, 100 kids, dealing with a guy that played in Dodgers. That's $75,000 a month. Take $25,000 as your hard costs, rent, equipment, all this stuff. $50 a month. You're making $600,000 a year. Not a bad life. I said, next, you can go start a business, go into real estate, do investments, do insurance, do something. What do you want to do? And he says, I'm not done with baseball yet. I said, perfect. Now, if we're going to baseball, let's go to baseball. So we go to the baseball set, and I write a number on the board. I said, just out of curiosity, let's call him John. I said, how much you spend on your health and your body every year? He said, excuse me? I said, how much you spend on your body every year? He gives me a number. I write it down. I said, there's a guy named James Harrison for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Story came out about this guy and how much money he was spending on his body every year. Everybody was blown away. This was 2017. James Harrison spends $375,000 a year on his body every year. I said, how much you spending on your body? Because that's your business. I said, what would happen if somebody put $250,000 into conditioning with your body every year? What would happen to your game? Dramatically change. Would that increase the chance of you getting a bigger contract? Yes. Why are we not doing it? Then I went to number 2. What areas do you need to improve in? And we talked about 2 areas. One was defense. The other one's he strikes out a lot. I said, who are you going to talk to right now to work with you on your defense? Who are you going to talk to help you out with hitting better and striking? I said, well, I'm a big guy. It's okay if I strike. I said, no. I said, no, that's not how this works. You have to learn how to become a better hitter because you're at a phase right now. You want people to give you a new contract. What's the moral of the story? See, this is a game. If you look at it as a game, as what are the next 5, 10, 15 things I need to be doing? This is my business plan right here, Dr. Phil. On this business plan, there's a section that's just about my wife and I, our relationship, and how we can improve it. I write this on my own, right? Then the next page after the side about my wife, then it's about my oldest son. Then it's about my youngest son. Then it's about my daughter. Then it's about my youngest daughter. And it's a business plan about life. Then you're sitting there planning on saying, what is he going to do? What is she going to do? He wants to be a baseball player. He wants to be a football player. He wants to be a soccer player. What is the right sequencing? Is it leaving them in club and staying there for 4 hours and they only train 30 minutes because they're lollygagging? Or is it put them with a one-on-one? Do I keep them playing in this club? Do I put them in school? Do I put them in that? You're actually processing this intentionally. So the more people think about their career from a chess standpoint, what are my next 5, 10, 15 moves? You can do this with business. You can do this with your house. You can do this with vacation. You can do this with your kids. It gets you to look at the world and this thing in a way where you start having fun with it. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be. And one of the rules that I have, I espouse this every chance I get. You're so in alignment with what I talk about in this regard, and that is be who you are on purpose. I beat the drum on this so hard, and it doesn't matter what stage of life you're at, but be who you are on purpose. You're talking about it in a very planful way. I think a big part of that is be who you are on purpose and own it. You just did something and actually showed the papers that I think are the difference between success and failure in knowing your next 5 moves. And that is actually writing it down, because people will hear what we're saying and they'll say, he's really right. When I go walk on the track in the morning, I'm going to really think about this. I'm going to invest some time in it. No, if you don't write it down, you don't have to really crystallize your thinking. When you have to go into production mode and actually put this down on paper, which forces you to articulate it, forces you to go into production mode and write it down, you won't save it. It won't stick. If you write it down so you can go back and look at it and review it and see, okay, this is what I said a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and how do I feel now, and how do I want to evolve that message? It just doesn't have the same effect. You hold up those papers there, you put some real thought into that. You put some real effort into it. That means you've invested in it. You've crystallized your thoughts enough to make a coherent statement, an outline. Now you've actually got something to work with. That's different than thinking about it, meditating about it, talking about it with a friend, or walking around the track and going over and over it in your head. You've got to write this down and set those goals out with action steps. And the difference between a dream and a goal is a timeline and accountability. Some day is not a day of the week. I love your analogy of sports with a time clock. You got a shot clock, you got a game clock. You've got to put a timeline on this, because days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years. And then pretty soon you look back and you go, where'd my life go? You got to have a time clock.
Dr. Phil, what was the first book you read as a young man that your eyes opened up? What was that moment for you?
Well, the first book that really had a profound effect on me was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I read it really late in life. I read a lot of things that shaped my thinking step by step by step. But the one that pulled it all together for me was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And as you know, he was a prisoner of war in Auschwitz. And the thing that registered for me, the rest of the book is an introduction to logotherapy, which I think is not good. But the first half is his story about being a prisoner of war. The big message, the big takeaway for me from that book was they had him in that prison camp and they controlled everything. He said they can control whether we live or die, whether we eat, whether we sleep, whether we sit, whether we stand, whether we're inside or outside. The one thing they can't control is the attitude I take about it. They can't control my internal dialogue. They can't control what I say to myself about it. I had read thousands and thousands of pages of cognitive behavioral therapy, and I'd read so much about psychological functioning from a very early age, because I was really focused on understanding why people do what they do and don't do what they don't do. And this brought everything together for me, that we don't react to what happens in life. We react to violation of our expectations about what's supposed to happen in life. We react to what we say to ourselves about what happens. And if we expect A and we get B, we're going to react differently than if we expect B and we get B. It was so profound to me that he said, I control my internal experience and they can't take that away. I can laugh at them. I can completely dissociate. I can escape. I can be somewhere else in my mind, my heart, whatever. They can't control that. I've really seen the power of being able to control that inner experience. I believe it is probably the most powerful tool we have in creating our existence. whether it's what we want it to be or not what we want it to be. And you can't give your power away. And if you do, you're just working for somebody else. You're a slave to opinion. My dad used to say you wouldn't worry so much about what people thought of you if you knew how seldom they did. We all think everybody's going home thinking about us, talking about us. And he said, they don't pay your rent. They could care less. They got their own problems. You need to worry about you.
What work did he do?
He was a salesman in the oil field selling bits and pipe and that sort of thing. And then he was a football coach. And then he went back to school and got his PhD in psychology.
Oh, wow.
And then real late in life, he went back and got his Master's of Divinity in theology right before he died. He was a really bad alcoholic. And that robbed a lot of our life experiences together and all, but he found his way back. And in the last 2 years of his life, he went back and got his Master's of Divinity and sobered up, and sadly didn't last very long before he passed. But he had a rough and tumble life.
How did that, were you forced to grow up faster? Because that's kind of what I felt. Like I felt like I didn't have at a younger age, as a young boy, I had to be a man faster because the circumstances that I have. Did you go through that, or did you have a boyhood where you enjoyed yourself and you knew what it was to be a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old?
No, because he was such a violent alcoholic and an absent father, a couple of things happened. I had to make a decision, and my decision was I've never taken a drink. I don't drink at all because I saw what it did to him. And I became very self-reliant. You just learn to depend on yourself because you have no role model you can depend on. When he's that erratic, you never know if the utilities are going to be on when you get home that day. You never know if the furniture is going to be in the house or thrown through the picture window onto the front lawn. You never know if the car is going to be there or off in a ditch somewhere. You just learn to totally rely on yourself. So I've worked since I was 10, 11 years old. Used to come in and out of the house through the bedroom window, so I didn't have to go through the chaos through the house. I'd just come and go through the window. I've got 2 boys. I wouldn't wish any of that on either of them, but I really wouldn't trade for it either. I learned how to be self-reliant. I depended on myself, learned how to get by and do the things I needed to do, and it served me well in my life. High price, but it served me well.
Isn't it interesting? We talked about comedians earlier. Look at the upbringing of you, of Oprah Winfrey, of Tony. Everybody has been in the business of trying to make other people's lives better, right? All 3 of you, if you think about it. And that came at a price for all 3 at the beginning stages.
It does come at a price, but if you don't use it, it's just tragic penalty.
True.
If you do, it's at least tuition. High price, but at least it's tuition. Again, it's all in how you look at it. But listen, we're out of time, and I appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom with us. We could talk many more hours, and I hope we have a chance to do so in the future, because Patrick often goes by just PBD, and he's written other books as well. On his backlist is Choose Your Enemies Wisely, 25 Laws for Doing the Impossible, Drop Out and Get Schooled, and others. You can find him on YouTube. The book we're talking about today is Your Next 5 Moves. I highly recommend it. You will not read this book and not come away with things that you can use in your life. And you may think, well, I'm not in business for myself. And you've heard me say right in the beginning, yeah, you are. All of you are in business for yourself, for you and for your family. You're in business for yourself. And this talks about planning and maximizing your experience. And he talks about it in language that you can understand. So if you're not on Wall Street or you don't own a real estate firm or something like that, don't think that there's nothing there for you, because you would miss a serious opportunity if you did that. And you can get a lot of information from his PBD podcast and find him on YouTube. And I'm going to have links right here where you can just click on it and it will take you right there. As I said, he's host of the PBD podcast and Valuetainment, #1 YouTube channel on entrepreneurship, and #1 business podcast on Spotify. Other than that, he's just kind of hanging around looking for something to do. So congratulations on finding a way to share information with other people. You're doing good work out there.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. Appreciate you.
We'll talk again, my friend.